host, Gary Baumgarten. Well, today I have a bunch of stories that I want to talk about, and you can read about them at my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com. A lot of stories. I'm going to just review for you what I want to talk about, and then we will bring the issues up. I want to talk about the surge in Iraq. Is it really working? France wanting to ride to the rescue in Iraq. I want to talk about Muslims pressuring the BBC to change the plot of a television program that was to air there, a popular program that's been on the air for years called Casualty, which in the United States we have a show very similar called ER. And the unfortunate return of Soviet Union type activities by the government against dissidents in Russia and a rise of neo-Nazism in Germany. What kind of a world are we entering? Doesn't look very promising to me. Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I reported that there were a couple of guys from the Cato Institute who had been analyzing the situation in Iraq and have from the very beginning been extremely critical of the U.S. involvement in Iraq and who had been traveling there and back repeatedly. And I reported to you that they came back from a recent visit to Baghdad with a new view on the situation, coming back saying that the surge is working. They now support the current efforts in Iraq, and they believe that the military should be given an opportunity to push forward and complete the mission now that it is properly defined and it's successful. And there are indications that when General Petraeus comes from Iraq to address Congress, he will recommend exactly the same thing. And the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief George Bush, has said, you know, I'm going to decide what our future policy in Iraq is based on what the military folk tell me, including especially General Petraeus. Well, now we have a report from Foreign Policy and the Center for American Progress concluding that all of that is looking through rose-colored glasses. What they have done is conducted a survey of 100 of the nation's most respected foreign policy hands. That includes former secretaries of state, former White House aides, former military strategists, and people from the intelligence community. And their conclusion is that not only is the surge not working, but the overall war on terrorism is beginning to falter and fail. Now, look, this is a survey. This is not an analysis from our military. But it causes us to take pause. What is really going on in Iraq? I will tell you one thing that I think everybody can be in agreement with, and I mentioned this the other day. That is that the Iraqi government is not rising to the occasion. And in fact, Senator Carl Levin, Democrat of Michigan, today is suggesting that the Prime Minister of Iraq step down because they're washing their hands of the situation. The parliament goes on vacation for the summer, leaving it to the Americans and the rest of the coalition to deal with the situation in Iraq. And now we have France's foreign minister offering his country's assistance. Quite interesting that France would ride to the rescue suddenly, given the fact that they oppose the invasion of Iraq from the beginning. On the other hand, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that Iraq is that France is coming in, because maybe the whole world should take view of what's going on in Iraq. Maybe the whole world should realize that the Prime Minister of Iraq and the President of Iran are starting to make nice. And maybe this whole thing is slipping out of the grasp of the West, and maybe we're heading towards some kind of a theocracy in Iraq if we're not careful, filling the void that has not been filled by the new civil authority in Iraq. And maybe we're going to end up with a worse mess than we had when Saddam Hussein was there. Matt is joining us from Wichita, Kansas. What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Well, Gary, for first off, um, we're going to continue with the Iraqi war. We're going to continue being there. Gary, there's been a talks that they said they're going to pull out. They're not going to pull out. Look, we have Pakistan where they talked about Pakistan. We heard candidates come out and said they want to go into Pakistan and find Bin Laden. Then we have some other candidates coming out since Syria is harboring terrorists. We need to go back in Afghanistan. These are the main regions that they're really concentrating on. I